And as we mentioned, we're now in the critical hours of the search, and though we're all holding out hope and praying for the families, chances of survival could be slim. Dr. Lane Rowling, trauma surgeon and infectious disease expert, is with us now to talk about this. Dr. Rowling, glad to have you with us, but not such on a good note tonight. Those families are desperately waiting for some answers. First responders up against the clock. So, Doc, can you first explain what these critical hours look like? What's the window for chance of survival right now?
Good evening, everybody. And I agree with you on a somber note tonight on a Sunday night, and it shows you the reality of life. Life is very precious. But the reality, Brittany, is that the first 24 hours is going to be our golden window period, where the survivability is increased when we find people for the first 24 hours. After that, that number goes down tremendously. In a situation like this, on a building collapsing on top of it, kind of reminds us of a bomb blast in the military or earthquakes. And you have to understand that the majority of the injuries, 67% of the injuries, are going to be people with thoracic compression. People are going to suffocate with the materials falling on top of them. And then the second is what we call traumatic injuries, about 17%, and then 10% of people have burns, and the other 5 to 6% are head injuries. You have to understand, depending on the level and how high the building is, when it pancakes down on top of the lower floors, the survivability on that is almost impossible, even though it is possible for people to survive. And we have to understand the first 24 hours is very important. As we pass that first 24 hours, the most important critical thing here is going to be hydration, where the people are hydrated, that they have enough water. After that, then what happens is that number goes down without dehydration. We can live 2 weeks without food, but water is the most critical thing, and making sure if they do have a traumatic injury and the materials from the building is on top of the actual individual, that they have room to breathe, to make sure they have compression. Like we see in trauma, airway, ABCs, airway, breathing, circulation is very important. And then we also need to understand that the reality is that, we still need to understand what type of, what made the building come down. Was it complete construction defect, et cetera? That's going to be very important in understanding the injuries that these people are going to have.
Yeah. And Doc, last November, there was actually a 3-year-old girl rescued alive after 65 hours trapped under rubble in a strong earthquake that happened in Turkey. She survived. We're in day 4 here. What's the likelihood of some type of miracle happening on our end here in the U.S.?
Well, you know what, Brittany, this is life. There's always a miracle. God always has a way of making it happen. But the reality is that when we're in a catastrophic situation like this, depending on how high, what the force is on the building, or the force of materials falling on the individual. Does a person have a head injury? Do they have a complete, like we said, 63 to 67% of the injuries always thoracic compression, i.e., are the materials land on their chest? Are they buried underneath it? Or do they have nasal compression where they can't breathe? That is very critical. And there have been cases out there where guys have lived 14 days in Haiti with the earthquakes and some of the major disasters out there. But that individual was drinking sewage water to make sure he's dehydrated and stuff. So the reality is that after about 72 hours in a catastrophic event like this, the chances gets very, very low. But I wouldn't rule it out, because in life, as long as we have hope and opportunity, there's always a possibility.
That is certainly true. Amen to that. And we know the first responders are having trouble finding those air pockets, but we again are praying that they find some signs of life. Dr. Lane Rowling, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Always a pleasure, and